Well, good morning. It is a privilege and pleasure for me to introduce an individual I've known for a long time. He's also the best-selling author of his latest book, Building a Magnetic Culture. Please welcome Kevin Sheridan.
Thanks so much, Audrey. It's a pleasure to be here. I have spent about 30 years listening to employees in all different cultures, all different industries, and one of the common themes or threads that I've seen over the years is one topic that comes up as almost always in need of improvement, no matter whether it's an organization that is best in class with regard to associate engagement or worst in class. That's the thread that I've seen over and over again throughout many organizations where communication is definitely an opportunity for improvement. I know this also because I've been in the survey industry for almost as long, 30 years, giving people an opportunity to give confidential feedback about how they feel in their jobs. And nearly every employee survey that I've been aware of asks about communication. And for 30 years, I've never seen an organization eclipse the following two statistics. And the two questions that are favorites of mine are, where are you getting your information? And where do you want to get your information? And invariably, the statistics over time haven't changed much in terms of where I prefer to get my information. 55% of the time, the employees say, I want to hear it from my boss. And unfortunately, when given the options for where you're currently getting your information, whether it's an email, a newsletter, a voicemail, my coworker, or my boss, boss is only at 35%. So there's an enormous gap between where people want to get their information and where they actually get it. I couldn't agree with Randy more when he said that when a customer doesn't get a response, I think he used the word unacceptable, that's how you lose customers. And even just letting them know, if you don't have a full answer, as you infer, just letting them know you're on it, I hear you, and we'll get back to you by a certain time is very, very helpful. So, as I mentioned before, I spent a lot of time focused on listening to employees and listening about how they feel about their job, their boss, their culture, their environment. And really the origin of the book that you see up here is a tale of engagement in and of itself. I had in my old company, HR Solutions, a rock star millennial employee, younger worker, who came to me one day. She was in our marketing department. She said, Kevin, you have all this knowledge of how people feel about their job, and basically she said, you got a book in your head. And she said, if I get you a book deal to write a book, will you write it? And I said, sure, why not? And a month later, she ran into my office. She said, with great exuberation, Kevin, I just got off the phone with McGraw-Hill, and they're going to give you an advance for your first book. And her name is Amelia Forchek. Those of you that have the book, you'll see at the beginning of the book, I give an enormous shout out for what she created. We shared about 8 seconds of excitement in my office, and then we both realized we got to write a book. Fun in the workplace. And I dedicated an entire chapter of my book on this topic because, frankly, we're not having as much fun as we should be at all. We spend far too much time at work without that little bit of levity that gets us to smile, gets us to laugh. And in some departments, fun was the lifeblood. You could literally see it among the coworkers, which is neat. And there are a lot of people that come to work every day where they might feel stressed out, overworked, what have you, but they're coming to work every day because they like working with Joe or Mary and they have fun. And two statistics in the book that I quote, how many laughs does a 5-year-old have on average each day? 5 years old on average laugh 113 times a day. It's beautiful. What happens as we age? Those of you that are 44 years old, on average, you laugh a mere 11 times. We're not laughing enough. There are things employers can do and employees can do to build that into their culture and create that magnet of fun and laughter. I had a great moment and wandered over into an area that had a refrigerator on it. And I saw a sign on the refrigerator that just made me laugh. This was from the meat department. The sign on the refrigerator looked like a Dilbert or Scott Adams cartoon. It said, just in bold type, "There's a new office trend in the workplace among employees. People are actually naming the food in the refrigerator. I just ate a tuna sandwich called Kevin." I mean, how could you not laugh at that? For so long, the ownership on engagement rests solely with the manager or the employer. And about 6 years ago, I had a client come to me and say, "Something's wrong with that. Why is it always up to the manager to create engagement? Why is it always up to the employer for 100% ownership for engagement? When does the employee get involved?" And the minute that client shared that feedback with me, literally bells went off in my head. We were missing half of the solution. This client actually said to me, "Kevin, if my relationship with my wife was as lopsided as this, we would have been divorced by now." Isn't any healthy relationship a two-way street? And he said, "My relationship with my kids, my church, my family, my community, it's a two-way street. Why should engagement be anything different?" And that's why we have created a solution where employees begin understanding their own engagement and what they could do to become more engaged. Let's go back to driver number one. How many times have you heard an employee say, "Well, my manager didn't thank me"? I never hear any positive appreciation, and they go on and on and on with the story. Yet they don't step back and say, "Well, wait a minute, if I'm an associate that I feel I'm not getting recognition, can I get it? Can I go to my boss at the end of the week and say, 'Hey, Joe, this is all that I accomplished this week. I'm curious, did I do anything this week that really stood out?' And then get recognized." Employee engagement without the employee's involvement is the ultimate oxymoron. A magnetic culture, that term, we actually, at my old company, we trademarked that term about 12 years ago. And what I liked about it is I like the fact that it really embodies what engagement is all about. A magnetic culture will draw top talent in like a magnet does. And that magnetism will also keep people to stay, which is one of the symbols or signs of engagement, intent to stay, that loyalty factor where people say, "You know what, I could probably go somewhere else and make more money, but you know what, we got something special here at Topco. I'm not going to leave at the drop of a hat." Engaged employees have an emotional and intellectual commitment to their organization. They are ready to exert that extra discretionary effort in one's job. They're ready to innovate, they're ready to communicate, they're ready to deliver top-notch customer service, and they always respond to their customers. They have a natural affinity for customers and caring about customers. Lastly, in terms of balance, they're ready to own their own engagement. They're not one to point fingers and say, "Well, my manager didn't do this," or "this organization didn't do that." They're ready to accept some of the ownership for their own engagement level, which is exciting. I could spend an hour telling you all the positive things that come with loyal, engaged employees. And just these are a smattering of the characteristics that are exhibited by engaged employees. As you look at this list, think of the people you work with and/or manage. Think of the people that you know are the most engaged employees at Topco. They likely have these characteristics. They're loyal, they will not leave, they're committed to the organization and its brand. They are what are called net promoters in the marketing world. They're quick to speak about all the wonderful things that are happening at Topco, and they're quick to speak about what they can do to make a difference. They have a natural drive and self-motivation. They're committed to the organization. They get a lot of their engagement from their job content. They know that their skills and abilities are best utilized when doing their work, which is exciting. They have a natural optimism, which you'll see visually in a minute. They're very supportive of their coworkers. Ready to be mentors. One of the great best practices of how do you take somebody in the middle who's not engaged and not disengaged, marry them up with one of your A-player engaged people. Let that A-player engaged person be a mentor for that person that's ambivalent or in the middle, and they will offer their support. They're an inspiration to others. They have a natural positivity, if you will, and as I mentioned before, they provide great customer service. They have a natural affinity to do just that. Here are the 3 buckets of engagement. This data comes from my old company, HR Solutions. One of the most shocking things of this pie chart, if you've not seen levels of engagement, is just how few people are engaged. Only 27% of the North American working public is considered to be engaged. This is based off the 16 questions in a survey, which is an engagement survey. And the other big wow is looking at that huge middle category, ambivalent. These people are not engaged and they're not disengaged. Those of you that are managers, one of the great things you can do as a result of this survey is think about your pie chart. Think about the people you manage. Who's in the middle? And what do they look like? Are they bad employees? No, but they're not engaged. And I know there are people old enough in the room to remember that old Dunkin' Donuts commercial where Harold the donut maker at 4:30 in the morning, time to make the donuts. Unfortunately, the lion's share of the working public approaches their job every day with that lack of passion, that lack of vigor, and that lack of pride. Great managers who want to create a magnetic culture will re-engage those employees that are not engaged or ambivalent. One other symbol of this ambivalence is the lack of volunteerism. I mentioned that before. Are ambivalent employees ready to exert that extra discretionary effort? Nope. Will they volunteer? Those of you that are managers, one of the great ways to figure out who's engaged and not is ask for volunteers. The ambivalent people will literally hide. They're not ready to exert extra discretionary effort. And as I say in the book, if you know they're not going to volunteer, maybe you should voluntold them. Audrey, you're on the committee. Congratulations. We expect great things from this task force. Re-engage them. There are things you can do as a great leader to re-engage employees. And then you have the third category. When I was doing surveys at HR Solutions, we competed with lots of big name companies like Gallup and Towers Watson and Hewitt. All of them had names for this third category of employees. Gallup's name? Vampires. Why? Because they're sucking the lifeblood out of their manager in the organization. You're trying to do great things, and these are the nefarious people that will immediately shoot it down. We'll never make it. You know, when you announce some positive, great new program, they're immediately attacking it. All of the management gurus out there, from Peter Drucker to Stephen Covey to Quint Studer in healthcare, all of them, in looking at their advice on how to manage this population. Transition. You can coach and you can hope, but the reality is you're not going to be able to take that actively disengaged employee and turn them into an A player. You can actually see this on the first day when you're trying to take the time to onboard a new associate so they're engaged day one. How does that new employee interact with their coworkers? Well, the actively engaged person will immediately seek out that work and say, you joined a great team. Let me tell you all the great things we're doing here at Topco. Let me know if I can help in any way. Congratulations, have fun. The other end of the spectrum, let me tell you what it's really like to work here. Immediately spreading gossip. There is a correlation between the amount of gossip in a workplace and the amount of disengagement. What are the drivers of engagement? All right, this is not just haphazard. When I was at my old company, we would actually, we'd look at the statistics, millions of people filling these surveys out, describing how engaged they were and answering questions that relate to engagement. And we do on a quarterly basis a key driver analysis, and this is in the book, showing people, okay, these are the things that are most impactful to driving engagement. Number one on the list, recognition. The single most impactful way to create engaged employees is recognizing them and showing appreciation. What does engagement look like? That positivity, I mean, look at this gentleman. Absolutely infectious optimism. And this team spirit that engaged employees bring is just wonderful. One of my passions outside of work, and that's another great best practice, by the way, if you're a manager or a leader, take the time to figure out what your people do outside of work. Be genuine and have a genuine interest in their lives. I love to climb mountains, and about 15 years ago I started my journey on what's called the 7 Summits, which is to climb the highest mountain on every continent, all 7 continents. I've done 4 of them. This is actually a picture of my last one, which is actually the highest mountain in Europe, which happens to be in Russia. And the reason I have this slide up is because during these climbs, when I'm decompressing about my type A personality and my work environment, I couldn't help but notice that there is an uncanny similarity between high altitude mountaineering and building a magnetic culture. It requires great leadership. That person at the front of the line there is a guy named Vern Tejas. He's also known as Mr. Denali. He's summited Mount McKinley 77 times. He's the only human being to have climbed the 7 summits twice within a year. Think about that. That's Mount Everest twice, let alone Mount Vinson in Antarctica. A remarkable individual, a great leader who shepherds and sometimes carries his climbers to the summits and also listens to them. And each of the expeditions that I've been with Vern on began by him asking for feedback, saying we're about to embark on something that is fun, but it's also dangerous, and our goal is not to get to the top. Our goal is to get to the summit and come down safely. And 80% of all mountaineering accidents happen on the way down. People become complacent. It's just remarkable the similarities between these two things, and people bring that attitude of engagement to a mountain climb as well, and you can bring it to your work environment every day. What does disengagement look like? Those of you that have seen the movie Office Space, remember the beginning? Peter Gibbons is driving to work. He's not a very engaged employee, and it all goes downhill from there. He's actually fighting traffic to get to work, and the octogenarian on the sidewalk is making more progress than he is. Who would put a sign up like that? That's just going to create disengagement, definitely a disengaged employee. My boss told me to change this stupid sign, so I did. What's the outcome of that? The outcome is if you're a customer driving by in need of gas or a candy bar, you're not going to stop at that gas station. Disengaged employees create disengaged outcomes. My favorite visual image of disengagement is the next one, because it speaks to one of the 3 definitions of engagement. Readiness to exert extra discretionary effort. Are you kidding me? Can you just get out of the truck and move the log and then paint the line? Truly remarkable. You can think of what that looks like in your environment as well. I am going to open up for questions, but in my last closing remarks, I actually had fun throughout the book. I quoted my grandmother 2 or 3 times, and she was a very sage, 5'2" Irish woman that for the latter part of her life, she lived till 91. She lived in Florida, and I would go down, and we would have these really meaningful conversations as she sipped her scotch and I sipped my scotch. And I said, Graham, I said, how did you make it this long? I mean, you're, coming up on 91, and her message was, keep moving, keep moving. And I saw that in her behavior. She worked through disengaged times, and everyone has a tough work day, and that's great, sage advice. Keep moving, work yourself through it. All right, engage yourself and have fun. Take care.